Hi there, this is Lukasz for Tech Travel Geeks. Welcome to part 3 of our mobile gaming videos. So far, we've reviewed the ipega Red Knight and ipega Red Bat devices, links in the description. Today, as promised, we'll go into more detail about the game's support. You can also check the timings in the description below. One thing to note is that both of those pads support two main modes. One which simulates on-screen controls, and the other which requires the game to have implemented joypad controls itself. What I've found is that the second option is always better, and if only the screen controls are available, the usefulness of this controller varies. With that out of the way, let the games begin. There were some games which worked perfectly. Those were classic Sonic games like Sonic 1 and Sonic 2 from Sega, both of them using the analog stick and a single button to jump. Controls were very accurate, even in the on-screen mode, and it was fun to play. So if you're a fan of old school games like this one, it should be great. Sonic must be the game I've played the most using those controllers, if that says anything. Rayman Adventures also worked great. Just make sure that you use the controller mode, as otherwise you'd be using the touch optimized version with some simplifications. Using the joypad mode, the game was fantastic. It's like the good old times and is definitely a recommended title. However, not all platformers or even Sonic games work well. For vertical games, the controls are flipped, so it's really difficult to control, and most games don't offer a way to change the mappings. Both Sonic Dash, Sonic Forces, and Subway Surfers were difficult to play using this controller, so if you're hoping to play those games, it might not be ideal. Similarly with racing games, if they're vertical, you'll struggle. I played Sega's Crazy Taxi City Rush and Mario Kart Tour by Nintendo, and both were vertical games, so it's not a great experience. However, just download Crazy Taxi Classic by Sega, and you'll be able to cruise through the streets of San Francisco to the sound of Bad Religion or The Offspring with really smooth controls. I highly recommend this one. I couldn't find a good Mario Kart other than using an emulator, but I can recommend Beach Buggy Racing 2, which I first played on a Tesla, and you can enjoy some good kart racing either on the Android phone or on the Fire TV device, with the controller support available. Some racing games which allow you to change controls are fantastic. Specifically, Real Racing 3 was great, as long as you switch the controls to an on-screen joystick. Once you do it, the controls are great and you can enjoy a lovely racing game on your phone. Highly recommended. Many modern racing games on mobile, especially the Asphalt series, are now based on QuickTime event controls, but that defeats the purpose of having a gamepad. However, as soon as you switch to the manual controller mode, it works great. Just make sure that you set the option correctly. Unlike the QuickTime event version, this one is actually great fun. I tested Asphalt 9, both on Android and Fire TV, and it worked great. As did Asphalt Xtreme, which was actually a great off-road racing game. I also played Rally Racer Evo, but I couldn't find a good controller scheme there. One of those which almost worked was when I only controlled the left and right turns, but pressing the analog stick left would turn the car right, and pressing the B button on the right would turn the car left, so it was very confusing to play. There's also CSR Racing 2, a drifting game. This game is optimized for mobile phones, you mostly just control a single button. So it worked well, but there's no need for a controller here, since you don't need precise joystick controls. So probably not worth it. On the other hand, I can recommend Need for Speed No Limits from Electronic Arts. It works great with on-screen controls and is a fun game to play. How about fighting games? I was really happy to see that Street Fighter 4 Champion Edition worked using the game controller mode, so all the buttons were mapped correctly. Always great to do a Hadouken on a phone. Great fun. Unfortunately, not much luck with its biggest rival, Mortal Kombat. It doesn't work in the game controller mode, so we have to use the on-screen controls. However, the game is mostly based on quick-time events and it's quite slow, nothing like the originals, so I wouldn't recommend it. For Injustice Gods Among Us, by the same developer, I couldn't even get the on-screen controls working, so no luck there unfortunately. It's just tapping the screen, not great. Shadow Fight 3 was quite similar to Mortal Kombat. I found the game a bit slow and predictable, so not really something I'd be coming back to. The graphics were quite good though, and on-screen controls are alright, so you might enjoy it. I downloaded Dragon Ball Legends as well, but after a large 2.5 GB download, it turned out that you can't really use a joypad, so no luck there. It's yet another of those games in vertical not working. I also downloaded King of Fighters All-Star, expecting a one-on-one fighting game. It turned out to be a side-scrolling beat-em-up, but it was actually quite good. Joypad controls were supported and very responsive, so I enjoyed it quite a bit. Just be prepared for some tapping on the screen in the menus. I wasn't the biggest fan of that, to be honest. A bit disappointingly, one of my favorite old-school games from Sega Mega Drive, Comix Zone, didn't fully support the controller. It recognized some buttons, but not the joystick or the action button. You have to use the on-screen controls instead. I managed to set the controls pretty much the way I wanted them to be, and it worked great. One thing to bear in mind is that it's one of the most difficult games out there, so be prepared to spend a lot of time trying to complete it. One helpful feature they added here is to rewind time, so that should help a bit. But either way, good luck with finishing this game, it's tough. However, it might be easier on a Mega Drive emulator, where the controls might be even better. I also tried a few sports games, with quite mixed results. Virtua Tennis worked great. Surprise, surprise, it's made by Sega. I actually really enjoyed a few matches. I was hopeful for FIFA Mobile, but it turned out to be a touch-optimized game, so it didn't work with controllers at all. That's too bad, I'd like to play some FIFA on my phone. NBA 2K Mobile worked alright with the virtual keyboard, but I'm not the biggest fan of basketball myself, so I can't comment too much. One of the first games I tried was one of my favorite mobile games, Skyforce Reloaded by a Polish developer Infinite Dreams. It's a vertical shoot 'em up, so unfortunately no luck there. Controls are inverted, and it makes playing the game almost impossible. The same with other similar games, 1942 and 1945 Air Force, both of which had inverted controls. This confirms that games in vertical are not really playable. I tried a few other classics as well. Tetris unfortunately didn't support the controller, and using the on-screen controls didn't work either, so no luck again. The one game which worked in vertical mode was Pinball Deluxe, and it actually allowed for quite custom setup. A bit of an overkill for a game where you literally use two buttons, but still good to see. More importantly, my favorite pinball from Nintendo Switch, Zen Pinball, worked great with the controller. The game was in landscape mode and used triggers, as you would expect. I only found it by accident while researching for this video, and I'm glad I did since it's a really great game with lots of secrets and tables. Highly recommended. Finally, let's talk about first-person shooters. Please note, I'm a PC guy and spend my time playing Quake and Doom with a mouse. So I'm not an expert with Fortnite or whatever you cool cats and kittens play nowadays. However, I played a bit of Fortnite, which was just released to the Google Play Store after 18 months on the Epic Store, and it worked really great with a joypad. It supported it straight away, walking with one analog stick, looking around with the other, etc. I'm still not sure why you need the landing procedure though, or why you start naked in PUBG for that matter. The latter game didn't use the native controller mode, but the usage of the virtual keyboard was quite good, so you should be able to enjoy some PUBG on a phone. It was similar with Call of Duty Mobile, but while it required some screen tapping for some of the controls, it was quite fun to play anyway. I left out one category of gaming in this video, namely emulators. That's because it's such a wide area that it warrants a separate video. Spoiler alert, using a game controller worked great with most emulators, and it was a lot of fun. Let us know in the comments below if you'd like to see a separate video about them. So, what are my thoughts about the controller after a few weeks of use? Initially, before I understood the two modes, I was quite skeptical, but once I learned how to use it properly, I've been really happy with it. Having a game controller like this allows you to experience the games in a very different way than you usually do on a phone, making it feel much closer to a real console. Yes, some games don't work with it, but you get all the ones that work instead, and that's definitely worth it. So if you're a fan of gaming, make sure you get one of those for your phone. You should enjoy it as well. Let us know in the comments below if you'd like to see more of those videos, as they're quite fun to make, and leave us a like if you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching!